Jason Aldean's song, Try That in a Small Town, has become a smash hit for two reasons. One, it's a damn good song, and two, real America has told the cancel culture woke mob to pound sand. But in a surprising revelation, the music video for the song has been quietly edited to remove 6 seconds worth of content, showcasing the summer riot season of 2020. Now, this wasn't to appease the woke mob, but rather because the Aldean team didn't have permission to use the very real riot footage showcased in the video. Here with his thoughts on that and so much more is host of the Bo Show on Epic Times, Bo Davidson. Bo, it's great to have you.
Thanks, Tommy. Great to be with you.
So I want to start out with all this Jason Aldean stuff because, this is still making headlines. Yesterday, because of that removal of that 6 seconds, and a lot of outlets, including TMZ, originally made it seem as though Aldean removed it to bow to the woke mob, but now we know it was just a copyright issue or a fair use issue, so that's why those 6 seconds were removed. But the song is still doing incredibly well on the charts. I think the people have spoken. What does this tell you about the trajectory of pop culture and where it's leaning and where it's going? Are we getting more conservative? Do we have a chance here?
Well, I think the fans are speaking. I mean, Jason said it best, I believe, in his concert a few days ago. I'm hearing you loudly and clearly. But I want to go back for a moment to Broken Bow Records because, Tommy, this is something that's concerning to me. I don't think for a second Jason called up his label and said, hey, guys, would you please remove that 6 seconds? I don't think that happened. But what I'm concerned about is if Broken Bow Records, his label, is saying that this is just a copyright issue, is that really true? Because I just can't imagine that happening for a simple copyright issue. You know this, Tommy. I mean, you know country music. There's such a process that people go through and they dot their I's and they cross their T's. And I just have a hard time believing that they would just all of a sudden drop this 6 seconds out because of what? Because of a copyright issue? It makes me think, and I don't know this for sure, this is speculation, that maybe some record labels, just like CMT did with Kelsey Ballerini and the drag queens, could be venturing into the woke arena and woke corporatism.
Eventually, they are right now. I mean, country music radio, country music television, country music as a whole, especially since 2020, has been bending over backwards to really salute their fans with the middle finger, but also to reach some kind of a woke quota that they feel like they need to have. I mean, it really started in 2020, as we know, but with the cancellation of people like Morgan Wallen, and then, as you mentioned, Kelsey Ballerini dancing around the stage with drag queens and then talking about gun control. And then when you look at some of the artists that they showcase, artists that I have never heard before, songs I have never streamed before, concerts I have certainly never gone to before, given all the limelight on these red carpets and at these award shows, it would seem to me that country music has been evolving for at least the last 3 years in a very, very woke direction. And I don't know if there's really hope of them changing that. I think that they would rather be woke than make money. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, I think that's right. But I think this is a watershed moment, Tommy. If you'll indulge me for just a second, I don't know if you remember this song from 2010 by Josh Thompson. It was called Way Out Here. And this very first line speaks to the exact same sentiment. So it was something like, our houses are protected by the good Lord and a gun. And you might need them both if you show up here not welcome, son. So you see, that line is exactly what Jason Aldean is talking about. Our houses are protected by the good Lord and a gun, and you might need them both if you show up here not welcome, son. Exact same sentiment in 2010. Difference is BLM, woke mob, wasn't after it then. Now they are, and so is CMT. And sadly, one of my favorite artists, so is Garth Brooks.
Yeah, that's super unfortunate, especially when I saw that very odd video that Garth and his wife, Trisha Yearwood, put out a couple weeks ago or a week ago, imploring everyone to donate their hard-earned dollars to Ukraine. I mean, it makes my blood boil. It also makes me sick. But country music has always been about protecting your own and about small towns. And when you brought up that song, which I know, I even go back to Blake Shelton and Kiss My Country Ass. I mean, that song, if you want to look at the lyrics, that song mentions a Confederate flag. So that wouldn't be allowed, of course, today in woke country music. But I think the fans are speaking, and I think that country music is going to have to, at least in some way, shape, or form, listen. And you saw it with Morgan Wallen. I mean, when everything happened with him, they dropped him like it was hot. And then the Dangerous album did so well that all of a sudden, some of these record labels that had to distance themselves, they came crawling back, maybe quietly, but they certainly did. So I don't think they want to mess with country music fans in the long run.
In the end, Tommy, money matters. And I don't know why they want to pick this fight right now. CMT needs to wise up. The record labels need to wise up. It's not going to bode well in the end. Jason's making a lot of money out on the road. He's #2 on Billboard. I think there's 20 million views of his video. It's senseless. But what kind of world are we living in, Tommy, where Jason Aldean, a patriot, is being criticized, and the U.S. women's soccer team doesn't sing our national anthem? No criticism there.
Yeah, well, again, I think that the way that wokeism has turned everything into the upside down. But, we saw it with Bud Light, seeing it with Jason Aldean, Target, some other examples. I do think that conservatives are realizing our buying power, and I think it's going to make at least a dent if we can hold on to our values and we can keep it up. But the next thing I want to turn to is also country music related. I want to get your take on this. And now this is a little bit old, but it has been still stirring up a lot of discussion. Let's take a look at Miranda Lambert and her little selfie freakout.
I'm going to stop right here for a sec, Danny. I'm sorry. These girls are worried about their selfie and not listening to the song. It's pissing me off a little bit. I don't like it. I don't. We're here to hear some country music tonight. I'm singing some country damn music. Shall we start again?
So what's your initial reaction when you saw that? Now, I'm a fan of Miranda Lambert, but I don't know if that was necessarily an appropriate call out to happen from stage.
I agree with you. Tommy, as a performer, I actually see this from both sides. So on the one hand, I've been in her position. I've been performing. You see someone taking a selfie. You see someone chit-chatting. You see someone texting. It's distracting to me. But as long as it's not distracting to the people listening, it's not a huge deal, and you shouldn't freak out over it. So as much as it pains me when I'm singing a ballad that I really care about, that maybe I wrote the song, I really care about the song, you know what? Those fans who've paid their hard-earned money to come see you, they can experience it how they want to experience it. And I would say, as long as they're not distracting and disrupting someone else's experience of the performance, you should leave them alone. They paid their hard-earned money. And these were women, I believe, in their 30s or 40s, and they walked out because, you know what, they have a right to feel scolded by a performer. Yes, this is a teachable moment about whether we should be taking selfies and whether we should just be focusing on the music. But every fan experiences it differently. So although I can see this from both sides, I think she overreacted.
Yeah, and I think part of the fun of going to a concert, they wanted to capture the moment. If they were sitting there taking selfies just of themselves, trying to send it to somebody, that might be different. But they wanted to get the concert in the background to capture the moment. So I would have been upset, and I really like Miranda Lambert. I think she's also a patriot. But that would have upset me a little bit too if I paid my money to go there and somebody was scolding me from on stage. That would not sit well with me. I would be offended, and it would bother me. But I want to turn now to some more pop culture, and you and I might disagree on this one, so I'm curious your thought.
Okay.
Have you seen the Barbie movie?
I have. I just finished it.
All right. Well, I saw the Barbie movie the other night with my producer, Kylie, and, I was not somebody that wanted to be outraged when I walked into it, and I watched it, and I wasn't outraged when I left. In fact, I kind of liked it. So I think that the conservative outrage over this movie is, quite frankly, ridiculous, but I want to know your take.
So I see where you're coming from. And again, this is another one where I can see both sides. From being on the film side of things, the production value is excellent. It really is outstanding. I think Greta Gerwig is a good director. There's a lot to like about it from a visual perspective. I'm not one of those ones that's like, oh my God, this is crazy. It's terrible. It's a heaping pile of garbage. I will say the word patriarchy is mentioned a lot. And the overall theme to me does seem to be Ken, men, bad, Barbie, women, good. But there are a couple teachable moments, and I did have, like you, probably a moment of reflection where I can see where they're trying to say these dolls who have no personality, no self-consciousness, are able to find their own identity. And I think, Tommy, that's the overall message. But unfortunately, they spend so much time bashing men, it's a little tough to see past it. But I do have to wonder, do you remember the part of the movie where when Barbie goes into the real world and the young girl who owns her as a doll says, "You're a fascist"? I thought, how would she know that word? Who would have told her that? So it makes me wonder, Tommy, if this movie is not for kids, is it really? Because if you're a young girl, and you go to see this movie, do you come out of the movie theater going, "Mommy, what's a patriarchy? What's a fascist?" And maybe that's an opportunity for the liberal-minded parents to educate and indoctrinate their kids on exactly what's being depicted in the movie. What do you think?
Yeah, I disagree with you because I think if you have liberal parents, you're going to be indoctrinated by many more things besides the Barbie movie. And quite frankly, I think that young girls playing with Barbies, I mean, that's the most traditional thing that I've ever heard of. I mean, for the conservatives that are so mad at traditional values and traditional roles, not being revered anymore, I think playing with Barbie and having Barbies and the way that Barbie evolved and what Barbie means for many generations, I think that was preserved in this movie. And I saw jabs taken at patriarchy, but I saw a lot of jabs taken, to be honest. And I thought that they made Ken look a little soft, and a little dorky. But at the end, I liked Ken. I liked Barbie. I didn't think anybody was trying to force any narrative down my throat. And I didn't expect to walk into the Barbie movie and have somehow some kind of masculinity reinforced to me. That's not what I went for. That's not the understanding of Barbie. So if people don't like it, I understand, but then just don't go. I don't get the people that go and they spend money on it so that they can be pissed off about it. That seems a little weird to me.
Yeah, I didn't want to come into it looking for outrage. I don't like to go into movies like that. I'd heard a lot about it before I came into it. But there are some good things about it. Like I said, there are moments of legitimate self-reflection where, like you said, there's jabs being taken. I think when, the Kens come begging back and saying, would you give us a Supreme Court seat? And they say, no, you'll get a lower court position. That's a bit of a stab, and the whole idea of Ken is nothing without Barbie. And, everything rocks in Barbie land, but everything out in the real world is completely where a woman is no one and has to fight for everything she gets. In the very last scene, I'm expecting her to go to a job interview and she's just saying, I'm here to see my gynecologist. That was a bit odd too, but I see your point. I think it's a fair point to make. I was not as outraged as I thought I would be. I'll put it that way, but I also don't like going into movies with the perception of outrage.
I thought that part was funny. It surprised me at the end. I thought she was going in for a job interview, so I laughed out loud. I actually thought it was funny. But Bo, now I say this as kindly as I possibly can. Because when I talk to men about the Barbie movie, I think their perception of it is so much different than mine, because I think that there are some men out there, conservative men out there, that are great men, that are understanding, wonderful men, but they might not be aware that some of the discussions had in the Barbie movie about what it's like to be a woman, that maybe men don't really understand that, at least in some part, some of that is legit. I mean, if we're going to say, sometimes women do have it difficult, right? We have to be all things to everybody. We have to look good, but we also have to be smart, but we can't be a bimbo, but we can't be a prude. That is, to some extent, that does happen, and I'm wondering if you as a man can maybe see that all of this is obviously a little exaggerated, but there's a kernel of truth in the Barbie movie there. And I say that as a non-feminist, but just as a female.
No, I agree with you. I actually had the luxury of watching the movie with my girlfriend. So I'm getting two perspectives as I watch it. And we both asked each other, what did you think? And when America Ferrera makes that speech about, you got to be pretty, but not too pretty. You got to be this, but you can't be that. Yes, there is a double standard out there. I completely agree with that. And that's saying this as a completely red-blooded American alpha male. But watching it with a woman, in your girlfriend, someone you care about, is actually a great experience, because I got to see her react to it at the same time as I did. And I agree with some of those points. I actually think there were fair points made in the film. I just don't like seeing men trashed all the time. It's like, well, yes, this is true, but at the same time, you have to say all men are bad. I didn't see a lot of redemption in the Kens, so I think that's what bugged me about it. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that I can't legitimize a lot of the complaints that were being made by women. I completely agree with those.
Well, I love to hear it, and I think we can have these conversations as conservatives and just be, humans first and then conservatives second. I think sometimes people, they have to lead with the outrage because they feel like they're supposed to be outraged, so they have to hold on to that because they have to prove a point. And then obviously it gets them clicks and likes and it gets them views to be outraged about absolutely everything. But I'm of the mindset of we really need to pick our battles. I'm less disgusted by the Barbie movie patriarchy than I am when they try to insert, transgenderism into children's cartoons or into school books when parents have no say. That to me is a battle worth fighting. But the Barbie movie, if we pick every single battle, I think we fall into a place where we're not taken as seriously and our culture war maybe isn't as successful.
I would agree with you. And I would also say that to me, this was just as much of an introspection into the young female as it is the young male. Jordan Peterson talks about this all the time, but there's a crisis in both. it doesn't mean that one is, mutually exclusive from the other. I saw as much of an identity crisis in Ryan Gosling as Ken as I did in Margot Robbie as Barbie. Yeah, we're all Barbie and Ken. In fact, you and I kind of look like it a little bit. But the point of it is it's like there's an identity crisis in both young males and young females. And who are the role models we're looking up to? Do we have any? But I think it's so important for kids to be able to experience this creativity, whether it's with dolls or whether it's with G.I. Joes, Transformers for me when I was a kid. But I think it does point to, if you really look deeply into it, it is asking us, in my opinion, to look into the heart of what's happening with young people overall. There's fentanyl that's a problem. There are role models that are a problem. There's an identity crisis out there. I think the movie can actually give us more things to think about than just being outraged.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think these are conversations worth having. And I think we can find some middle ground between conservatives and liberals and the wokesters and the people that are maybe a little too prudish. I think there's a happy medium to be found. I liked the movie. I liked the outfits, a lot of inspo. I watched the Barbie movie the same way I watch Bravo. Yeah, there's a lot of woke stuff on Bravo, but I watch it anyway because by and large, I still like it. So I think we can be normal. We can be normal conservatives and still have fun. So I want to leave it at that. Bo, thank you so much for taking the time, and we'll have you back soon for another pop culture roundup.
My pleasure. Thanks, Tommy.